this will be a useful overview and something that helps you understand where your training and skills needs are. I'd like to hand over to the most energetic person in communications, Georgia Turner.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining. I'm Georgia Turner. Hopefully my partner in crime, Darren Caveney, will be along just a little bit. So we're going to take you through, it's kind of a getting started really in public affairs, because as JP has said, it kind of keeps cropping up. And when we do the LGA training together, actually starting right at the beginning goes down really well with people, because it's one of those phrases that gets bandied about and you know, it can be quite confusing and quite a challenge. So I'm going to start right at the beginning. In short, the way that I like to describe it really is, how do you mobilize yourself? If it's all about influence and it's all about relationships, what are those shared aims that you have got? What are the really big things that matter the most to your organization? You're not doing public affairs. In comms, we do comms about many, many things. Public affairs is more likely to be really focused around very, very specific outcomes. What are they? Who shares those aims? Who is interested in those outcomes that you are also interested in? Who shares that common ground? Whether they are inside government or whether they are outside government, who can influence that aim and who wants that aim to be achieved? So why is public affairs important? Well, it helps us explain things and really put those big policies into your local context for your local audiences. So what are the really big national issues and how do they affect you and your organisation? You had a Renters' Rights Bill yesterday. What are local authorities expected to do about that? Some local authorities will have been leading the charge around that, because that's something that's really important for their communities. How do your priorities support national policy? Well, that's going to be really key, because you want to evidence the government that you are supporting what they want to achieve. They're more likely to listen to people who are going to support their political agenda. So I would say, think about, if you're looking at a public affairs strategy, what are the one or two big things that your organization wants to bring about that is outside of your control? You cannot do, and you need to influence at a national level.
But the public affairs building blocks as we see them, it's obviously relationship building. Some of you will be doing this already, and obviously more is needed. So that could be your MPs, but there's many more influencers and stakeholders as well, and we'll come to that in a moment. So I think the key bit is that identifying the stakeholders, having a stakeholder engagement strategy for your organisation. And I think it's looking at those joint opportunities to collaborate, to work together, areas of mutual interest, equally the areas where you differ. And, you know, sometimes that will be something to engage and to lobby on. In terms of the actual delivery, it could be issues management. I think the scenario planning is really important. Briefing and preparing, you know, your organisational leaders to make the case clearly.
Public affairs, very much, we've talked a lot about how this is about relationships. And when we take you through a stakeholder audit, for example, that would be very much organisation to organisation, also on an individual level. Who is the relationship manager in your organisation with a specific person in a specific organisation? And also, what's your strategy for managing that and one or other of them leaves? So yes, it's organisation to organisation, but also those individual relationships are dead important. It's very much two-way, about shared long-term outcomes that you are both prioritizing, or more than one organization is prioritizing. It can be really hyper targeted, because you're working with a really specific stakeholder group, for example. Very much needs political insight. As Darren was talking about, what do your MPs think? What do your councillors think? What do the ministers think? Who knows someone in the civil service? Who knows someone who's advising the government about this? Who's got some policy influence in this space that you're trying to focus on?
But obviously it's about identifying the issues and the opportunities right at the outset. And obviously you'll do that with your leaders, the leaders of the organisation. Then it's about agreeing the outcomes and setting those smart targets, those key performance indicators. And this can be really long-term stuff. We know this isn't a quick turnaround campaign normally. This will be quite long-term stuff. So once we know what we're going to do and agreeing those outcomes, then we need to work out and map those stakeholders.
I would say start by focusing on how your proposal achieves positive outcomes for your area and supports government policy and agendas. So it is very much that, what do I need to influence but cannot directly control or make a decision about? Focus on that. Get a strong evidence base, and that will be around mobilizing your stakeholders too. They need to know it. You want them saying it, sharing it, supporting it, shouting it, building it into their own plans and strategies as well. And then pull all those three things together into a really consistent narrative that is strong, that's relevant, that's relatable.
That's basically the charity that I'm working with at the moment. I've been working with for a couple of months. And we're working on a campaign to influence the government schools white paper. I'm sure quite a few of you will have heard of that. It's a white paper that could have potentially huge implications for the way SEND is provided. Also, something that's incredibly important for councils as well. So today I'm just going to talk you through some of the tactics that we're using for the campaign, which, you know, hopefully really gives young autistic people and their families a voice. And the aim is to, at that time when the paper comes out, to really get politicians to kind of sit up and take notice. This is basically the objectives that we agreed when we first started looking at the campaign, and these were sent to an agency really as our brief over the summer for them to come back with a concept for us. So the agency came back to us with this idea of absence notes. So that's the campaign concept. And I guess what we're doing is flipping that sort of traditional idea of a parent or carer writing to the school to say, my child won't be in today because, and we're getting young people and parents to write a letter to the government to say why their child is absent from school, whether that absence is because they're not at school that day, or they're in school but they're missing the opportunity to actually learn. So that we want real live kind of lived experience notes that are going to be hopefully emotional and full of personality, and also to kind of cover that diversity of experience as well. So all the different policy points that we're keen to get across as to why autistic young people do miss school. Yeah, and then just in terms of our strategy, it's really important for us as a charity to make sure that this is co-created. So we work with our young people to get their input into campaign messaging in particular, and some of our tactics as well. We're using real life case studies, getting some celebrities on board and influencers to raise the profile of the campaign. We have had a survey out in the field until recently, just trying to find out exactly how many people have missed school since the start of term, and that will really help with our media activity. We have our manifesto and we have a petition, and we'll be asking people to share their stories and sign up to mailing lists, etc. So finally, just getting on to our tactics, we'll be doing a big social media campaign. That will be our sort of main front-facing, directed at our primary audiences, which will be young autistic people and their parents. But also sitting underneath that and across everything really is a huge piece of stakeholder engagement. We're also aiming to do some programmatic advertising at some point in the campaign. I think probably the likelihood is over the sort of first phase, we'll do some activity to engage with parents and young people, possibly through focused advertising to them, maybe on council websites. Anyone who, for example, who's gone to an SEND page on a council website, we could then target those people afterwards.
You'll be familiar with CAN and placing advertising technology on council websites. And when people go to school term dates pages, for example, or even specific SEND related pages, what we want to be doing is highlighting and amplifying this campaign to encourage more parents of children with autism to get involved. Yeah, so if you are a council or you have connections with parents of children who would fit the target audience for this campaign, please do lend your support. It won't cost you anything, and it will add a lot to the impact for this campaign for Lindsay, which will hopefully give it more clout when she takes it to central government.
And now, finally, I wanted to share with you some technology that could be useful for any communications professional wanting to run a public affairs or influencing campaign. For those of you that don't know, these are CAN's communication principles. Firstly, when you run communications, you need to make them inclusive, and a key part of that is making sure that you reach 100% of the target audience. We also believe that everything we do in communications accelerates savings, whether that's reducing waste or being able to demonstrate savings versus alternatives. And you can't do one or two without three. So measuring everything and building everything to be measured is absolutely essential. And the way we work with comms teams is to support them with training to build skills and capacity. We also believe that evidence of savings helps support the council to make savings, to potentially connect campaigns, and to improve trust and reputation. And in doing those two things well together, we support the communities that we serve. Now, when we talk about public affairs campaigns and look at the audiences, it can be a little bit daunting. How are we going to reach all politicians, all party infrastructure, the departments relevant to our campaigns, and then also influence all news organisations and potentially involve charities, third sector organisations too? How confident do you feel that you're going to be able to do that in an inclusive and comprehensive way? Well, luckily there's programmatic technology. Your experience of this might be whenever you look at a news website, ads appear that are targeted to you potentially. But what programmatic advertising really means is ads being delivered based on a set of criteria outlined in a program. And this is done by connecting every page impression with a live auction, which the publisher sends a user ID essentially into an exchange, and then any advertiser in the world potentially can bid to place their ad in front of you. And so the programs that we can build, for example, around a send influence campaign, could be that we geo-target the Houses of Parliament, the DFE head office, the political headquarters, and the news headquarters, so that when they are looking at national, local, or international news, we're delivering impressions of your send campaign to those people. So imagine it as being like beams of your campaign being delivered into those central offices. One of the advantages of this is that even if people are working from home and going in through the VPN, we'll still be able to pick them up. Also, if people are using mobile devices in those areas, we can use GPS targeting to deliver those messages too. So MPs looking at their phones will be able to reach them that way. So what that looks like is when, for example, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough wanted to get their Ely Junction proposal targeted to these people and organisations. When those people were looking at news, the Ely Junction campaign was delivered to them. And we could see these very specific geo spots and impressions and interactions by location. And we could also then see overall how many impressions the delivery, where it was delivered, and how many interactions were generated. Now, if you compare this to maybe using a public affairs or lobbying organisation or running a letter campaign, we can see that the cost per message delivered was up to 50 times less, or to put it another way, with limited resources, you were able to achieve almost 50 times more impact. So hopefully this technology could be something that you build into future public affairs campaigns.